Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. And of course, good morning to the world receiving our signals through the magic of the internet. Anyway, folks, we are going to have a great program for you today. We have a great interview, but we'll talk about that a little later. Let's go move it on to the geniuses in the studios, the people who really make things happen around here. El Señor Reynolds y el Señor Van Bebber.
Well, Van Bebber needs to be top billed this morning. He took the trash out for me. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
And helped me bring in a very heavy computer that's going to be replacing one of the computers that's online right now. So
all right.
He needs top billing. So the geniuses in the studio, Jack Van Bebber and Oliver Hardy.
Oliver. Ollie.
Well, gee, this is another fine mess you've got me into on Tuesday, the 11th of March, 2025. And I was just reading about all the Trump backlash that's going on right now. It's lovely.
Well, you know, the famous...
The Teslas are burning.
Oh, yes. 5 of them burned yesterday, I think, in California. You know, the boy genius ain't a genius after all. I mean, 2 spaceships that blew up, you know, in 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months. And they're considering not letting him launch those things again for a while because, the Turks? One of the cities in Turkey that he's launching these missiles, or not missiles, but rockets, blew up, and they're tired of it. They said, no, man, you've already blown up a bunch of stuff, and we're tired of this stuff. And how come we're not suing him over this? Because of the environmental problem, and also the airports having to divert flights because of the debris. So there needs to be some lawsuits over this.
Any lawyers dangerous.
Out there?
Yeah.
Any lawyers dangerous out there that want to get some rich, you know? I mean, I encourage it. Look, anybody that gets involved with Donald Trump gets destroyed.
Yep.
I mean, look, Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, Mike the Pillow Guy, and the list is almost endless. If you get involved with Trump, you're going to get destroyed. That's all there is to it.
Yeah,
so
and
you know, the past and look at the future.
And they keep going. They keep looking for. They just think they're going to be the ones who succeed. You know, they keep thinking.
Well, I don't know how. They don't have a recipe for success. No, they just don't have it. It's not there.
So
that's my little rant this morning, Jack. Where's your wisdom at, man?
I'm not feeling it this morning.
Oh, no.
Oh, how are we going to make it today without a wisdom call?
All right. I'll do oligarch's pledge.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the corporations of the United Empire of America and to the economy for which it enslaves all peoples, demonizes and devalues them, passes the profit to the elite 1%, with punishment and tyranny for the poor. Slackers.
I just hate looking over and seeing a blank page on there and knowing that I'm going to miss out on some wisdom this morning.
Yeah, you know, it is like you know how you have a well fine-tuned machine. Jack brings the program to fruition, you know, with the fine tuning. So thank you, Jack, I know you're not feeling 100% today. It'll all be good. We are going to will it onto you. We are going to will goodness onto you, sir. Anyway, we're going to have a great show for you today, folks. Title of the show today is, if I can find it, Working Families Party National Director Speaks. The Rich Extorts from Us and United Progressives Now. Don't know if I'm going to get to all 3. I probably won't, but it doesn't matter because you come first. And before I play that 19-minute video, I think I better go to the phone since somebody decided to call very early. And you know, you will always come first. Brother Kyle, come on in.
Brother Egberto.
Yes, sir. Talk to me.
Yes, sir. I have completed the 3.1 miles run.
All right. You did a 3.1 mile run. I am so proud of you, Kyle. You keep up the
Yes, sir.
good work. You make sure and you keep up the good work. And, you're going to be a strong man. Okay, my brother?
Yes, sir.
You have a wonderful rest of your day, sir.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Kyle did 3.1 miles. Let's give a big cheer for brother Kyle. Anyway, folks, let's go ahead and get started early because this is a fairly, not long, but average length video. Let's go ahead and get that started. Welcome to another edition of Politics and Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Today, we're honored to have, once again, Maurice Mitchell. Maurice Mitchell is the National Director of the Working Families Party. He's a visionary leader in several social, racial, and economic justice movements. Maurice. Last time I spoke to you was out there at Netroots Nation 2024, and we had a whole lot of hopes then. Your thoughts? Let's get into, before we get started, what I want to discuss today.
Absolutely.
Let's get into your thoughts.
Well, what can I say? I have a lot of hope in the people. November's election did not go the way that we wanted it to go. However, what I've noticed is that so many people, even some people that voted for Donald Trump, are recognizing what's taking place, are recognizing the extent of the theft, the extent of the rank corruption. And I'm seeing on the ground a movement that is building that gives me hope that the people will do the duty that only the people can do in putting and checking an authoritarian. That's what I want to say. I know the past month or plus has been really disconcerting for a lot of people, has been disturbing for a lot of people, but the grassroots are ready to lead in this moment. I know sometimes it could be disheartening to look at Capitol Hill and be desirous of elected officials to show a certain type of leadership and a certain type of public courage. But I just want to remind people that, in general, politicians aren't fonts of public courage, and whenever politicians steal their back, it's often because the people and mass movements have stepped in and gotten in motion. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that all over the country, not just in quote unquote blue places, but we're seeing it in all types of communities, because people are really concerned that the wealthiest person on the planet is engaged in the most egregious theft and abuse and corruption imaginable on behalf of Donald Trump and MAGA. And so I think and know that we will stop it through our organizing.
Well, with organizing, I just wanted to say the edict that came out, I think it was today on Truth Social, where Donald Trump threatened colleges, stating any college that has illegal protests, and I don't know what illegal protests really means. But I have no idea what that means, will lose their funding. People will be arrested, and foreigners who participate in that will be thrown out of the country. What do you think that'll do to the grassroots as far as putting their bodies out there?
Well, this is directly from the authoritarian handbook, right? Mm-hmm. So authoritarians, far right bullies, this is what they do. They often target colleges and universities because they're places where there's a lot of free speech. There's a lot of young people with open minds, and there's a lot of intellectual discourse. They want to crush that because they want you to only toe the government line, right? So this is the process. This is part of the process. And I think it's going to actually awaken a lot of students. Mm-hmm. Waken a lot of faculty. I just saw some faculty release a statement in response to this. So I think what Donald Trump and MAGA don't recognize is that they did not win an overwhelming mandate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They didn't.
Well, they didn't win 50% of the vote, not even 50%. Yeah.
No. And one of my takeaways from the election is that the reason our side didn't make it was that millions of people who knew what time it was, who understood the assignment, who knew Donald Trump was a crook, didn't show up. And that's something that we have to take seriously. And that's something in the next elections we have to remedy. We have to make sure that we have a deep and trusting relationship with everyday working people, and that not only do they understand what time it is, but they complete the assignment. And that's our job as organizers. But the reason I say that is that I want to remind people that tens and tens of millions of people did not vote for this man, voted against this man. And he won by the smallest fraction of a margin and did not win more than 50%, which means he's likely to engage in overreach. He's likely to do things that nobody voted for, nobody wanted, even some of the people that voted for him. A significant percentage of the people that voted for him are not MAGA loyalist or MAGA cult-like people. There are people who gave him a shot for all types of reasons I deeply disagree with. Many of those people are second-guessing their decision. When they've handed him the ball, and instead of lowering the prices of eggs or lowering the price of basic goods or making their lives easy, he's used that power in order to attack universities, in order to fire workers or simply providing services like Head Start or aid to needy children, right? Just hardworking people who are providing services that we all depend on. Or go after his enemies, right? It's been more than a month and he's done nothing. In fact, inflation has increased. The price of eggs have increased, right? So as more and more people recognize that this has been a smash and grab robbery, that's basically what it is on a historic level. A lot of people are going to get in motion. Some of the people that voted for him who aren't Trump loyalists are going to wake up to the fact that they've been played, and they're going to be angry, and they're going to join a growing opposition.
Now, interestingly, you are the leader of the national director, the leader of the Working Families Party, which is not only a grassroots organization, but also it deals with people in the working class, people in the middle class. It seems to me like this is the opportunity. Like, we know with the tariffs being passed, we know that Target haven't announced today that prices will start. The increase in prices will start within 2 days. We know that car prices, the dealerships have already said their prices will substantially be increased on cars. It seems like this is the perfect time for organizations like yours to not just wake up those who already are in the club, but those who thought or didn't think they were voting for what they're actually going to get.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. It's all theoretical until it's visited on your house.
Right.
Right. The government bureaucrat that you don't know, their job should be eliminated. The government bureaucrat that you do know, they provide essential services to your community. Right. Or if you happen to be that government bureaucrat. Right. And so as it's visiting other people's homes, including some of the people that voted for him, absolutely, you're going to see public opinion change. It's already changing. He came in with public opinion that was low, but historically for him, it was higher than his first term. And, because people were like, he has great public opinion. I'm like, well, for him, but it's historically low for a president starting a term. And it's already dissipated. His numbers are already underwater, or in other words, there's more people who disapprove of him than approve of him. And it's going down further and further. People are not friendly to Elon Musk in general. People are not comfortable with the idea that a billionaire is just running around, having access to all of our data, cutting necessary programs. And look, I have to ask people, what do you think he's going to do with that data? Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, do you think that he's somehow going to resist a desire to take that data and feed his AI, his version of AI? Because basically data is king. Mm-hmm. And the thing that could make his version of AI, and he has one, more valuable is if he has access to the greatest data mine in history, which is the
United States government. I mean, he's using Grok. I think his AI is called Grok, if I recall correctly. And what's interesting about that is that it's not only that he has that data, but he has a clearing house that he's a financial network that he's trying to put together to rival, let's say, Stripe or any one of these other financial networks. But, going back to the MAGA folks in general are poorer, more working class,
yes,
and more on Medicaid, more dependent on SNAP and all these issues. Now, I don't think they ever thought that they would stand a chance of losing this. How do we approach them to get into that domain?
Sure. This is, I have to say in advance to your audience, right? This isn't everybody's ministry, but for those of us that are willing and able organizers, we seek to approach every working person with a lot of humility and curiosity, right? Because there's an opportunity to scramble the political lines in this moment when we know that rural communities receive more federal funding than urban communities. And we know many rural counties went to Donald Trump. We know that red states receive more federal aid than blue states. And those red states clearly went to Donald Trump. We know that there are millions and millions of poor people across race that depend on SNAP benefits, that depend on Head Start programs, that depend on Medicaid, across ideology, across party affiliation. These programs support so many people. And so when people voted for the wrecking ball that is Trump and MAGA and Project 2025 to attack the establishment and the institutions, they weren't thinking that wrecking ball will pile through their homes. So when that happens, and we're seeing it in real time, we're seeing it on social media, we're seeing it in the mainstream media, people bewildered and people feeling a sense of betrayal when they realize that Donald Trump has taken their job, has taken their benefits, are risking their livelihood. So when they're in that place, and more people are going to be in that place, we want to have a conversation with them. We plan to. And again, there's MAGA people who are MAGA cults like MAGA people. And then there's people who voted for Donald Trump for all types of reasons, because they believed that he would lower their grocery prices, or they believed that he was going to fight for them, or they wanted to like provide a punch to the establishment, right? A lot of those folks are having second thoughts already, and many more will. And there's an opportunity, I think, to create the biggest mass movement in American history, because at the end of the day, there are only enough billionaires on the planet to fill a medium to large size high school, a few thousand people on the planet. And this is government by, for, and of the billionaires, which leaves everybody else. So if you're not a billionaire, then you're with us, whether you like it or not. So what are we going to do? How are we going to stand up for our families, for our communities, ourselves, in order to make sure that we could defend ourselves from the billionaire giveaway? The Republican Party passed the most egregious billionaire giveaway in their recent budget bill, where they're going to cut Medicaid, cut Medicare, cut SNAP, cut every single program that so many people across party affiliation depend on. Why? So that they could provide tax cuts to the ultra wealthy. And so my question, regardless of who you voted for in November, and whether or not you identify as a Republican or Democrat, conservative or progressive, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to take it sitting down, or are you going to stand up?
I think that is an excellent point. And I think what is even as important is for these people to realize that it is okay to make a mistake. It is okay to have voted in a way that you just didn't expect. And what I try to tell on my program, and I'm so happy that you said that, there are many people who simply cannot deal with those on the right. They simply cannot deal with MAGA. But some of us must. And especially those of us who are activists, we have to bring these folks into the fold, and we have to give a whole lot of these people a place to land, because that is how you're going to open up, letting them know that they're not going to be alone. In as much as, on my programs, I point out all the time, you have made a bad vote. I have made bad votes. I have made bad decisions. Now, what are you going to do about it? So in closing, Maurice, tell me, what pitch would you make, not only to MAGA, but to all working class folks, as far as not allowing the system to break us, but actually work in harmony, work together?
Well, the thing that I'll say is that for those of you that are interested in fighting waste, fraud, and abuse, for those of you that are frustrated with government, I want people to understand that government is not the problem, right? Government of, by, and for billionaires is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to make sure that we fight for a government of, by, and for the working class. Imagine if we use the tool of government in order to make a real difference in our lives, to make sure that our communities are invested in, to make sure our communities are safe, to make sure that our young people have access to resources and have an opportunity to truly thrive, truly have more than our past generations had. We could do that, but it requires us to come together. And it means that individual activism is fine, but what's more valuable in this moment is for people to join an organization. And you could join any organization. If you're looking for one, I invite anybody who's listening to join the Working Families Party. And with whatever time and space that you have, we will honor that time and space and get you in motion. If you only have a few minutes, there's things that you could do. If you only have an hour or two, we could get you on phone banks, talking to your neighbors and talking to other people to let them know the truth so that they could take action. If you have a lot of time, then we could invite you to run for local office. Yeah, I'm going to say it again. Run for local office, because we believe that everyday working people should govern, not just millionaires, not just billionaires, but we want to make sure that school boards and city councils and water boards and fire districts and other local offices are filled with working people that are accountable to their community and want to make a difference, because the school board candidate and the school board member of today will eventually become the city council person or mayor or state senator or congressperson or eventually senator or president of tomorrow. That's something that we know to be true. That's something that the right wing actually famously did a lot of investments in. And we could, in order to push back against the billionaires, we could build from the ground up a movement of working class heroes who are ready to take leadership. And if you're interested, the Working Families Party wants to support that effort with you.
Maurice, what should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think you covered it. I think you covered the moment. Excellent. You did it well.
Maurice Mitchell, National Director of the Working Families Party. Thank you so kindly for having been with us here on Politics Done Right and Pacifica Network.
It was good to be here.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that with Maurice Mitchell. He, again, is the National Director of the Working Families Party, and you can find out about the Working Families Party at workingfamilies.org. Workingfamilies.org. It's a party that so far has gotten quite a few people elected in quite a few states. They are, in fact, a grassroots movement. You won't see any politician in New York try to get elected in the progressive side without getting their endorsement And that's happening across the country. They have expanded here to Texas and many other states as well. Anyway, folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. If you want to call in and discuss what we're talking about. By the way, I want to thank everybody listening. Our fund drive ended on Sunday, and it was a successful fund drive. We made a little bit above the amount that we were seeking, but it's never, ever, ever enough for these community radio stations because of the tight budgets we run on. So do remember, you can always continue giving in the name of Politics Done Right by going to Politics Done Right, or by going to kpft.org, hitting that donate button, select Politics Done Right as the program you're supporting, and then giving whatever you can. Because again, community radios always need your support. We have some other topics to cover here. Specifically, I want to talk about one that was not on the list, because I came across it this morning. And this one hurts to the core. And this one is the reason why we need independent media. The title, Washington Post columnist resigns, says publisher killed column that respectfully dissented against Bezos' edict. As you guys remember, Bezos said that it will not support anybody writing anything other than free markets, about free markets, and something else. In other words, he wants the opinion column to be a right-wing engine. Okay, folks, let's see. I think there's Kat on line one. Come on in, Kat.
Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning. How are you doing, my dear?
I am surprised to be awake.
Well, I'm glad you're awake to listen to us this morning, so thank you so kindly.
You're welcome. I love your show. I've been following it for a while, but usually later on in the day.
Okay. Anyway, what's up?
Well, I am a recent transplant from South Texas. I lived, if for people who don't know the geography of Texas, I lived in Port Isabel, which, if you look at the map, is the very point at the very, very bottom of Texas. And I love that place. I'm living in Northwest Arkansas now, and working remotely. But there's some things about living near the border, and there's some things about living near SpaceX that a lot of people don't realize. Down there, the whole thing surrounding SpaceX seems to be like a cult following, but increasingly, the damage done to people's properties, because they're so very close to the launch pad, has been like a mounting problem that can't be ignored or swept under the rug anymore. And in the beginning, people were told, well, he is not being held responsible because he's doing something for humanity, for all of humanity, right? So he was exempted from cracks in people's walls or other damages, to people's driveways or whatever. But to explain what's going on is, well, first of all, there are no rockets this close to anywhere where people live, anywhere on Earth. He moved into an area that was very well established for many, 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 many decades, and a place that's not really built for rockets. There's no buffer between his rockets and where people live. Water is not a buffer to the percussive force that comes from a rocket trying to leave Earth, right? So, what it is, it's an earthquake. The entire place just shakes like an earthquake. And I've lived through earthquakes. I used to live in Southern California, so I know what an earthquake feels like. It is a man-made earthquake. And then there's the percussive force in the air because it's going across water. And because the topography is extremely flat down there, right? So, there are people whose homes are being shaken off their foundations. There were brand new homes that were getting cracks in their walls and cracks up their driveways. Other people were getting cracks in their cement, like they had cement porches, wraparound porches, and cracks in that and starting to fall away. So, I mean, these are not minor things, but yet the people that were enamored with Elon and the whole SpaceX thing would always put people down because their homes weren't the ones that were affected. Well, as the rockets got bigger, which he said he would never, ever launch from that area. He said he would do it from Cape Canaveral and I think it's Lakeland Air Force Base or whatever in California.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like he doesn't have other places to launch. And he said that there were just going to be little test firings locally and that the other ones were going to be either in Florida or California. Well, the thing is that Texas just rolled over like a puppy wanting to, rub their bellies, and were like, they just exempted him from everything. And it became very cost effective for him to launch from there, despite the pollution, despite the constant earthquakes and all of that stuff. And of course, I'm sure everybody in the news knows that now that he's the king of America, he's gone through and gotten rid of all the regulatory agencies that have been trying to keep him somewhat in check, right? So now, like, they're gone or toothless, one or the other. And he has said, like, I'm a reporter. A long time ago, I covered a meeting where it was actually said that he wants to go up twice a week with payload. And so this is, so now he's saying once a month, once a week, he's really walked it back, but he has multiple launch pads now after he blew up that one where we got covered with that debris.
Right.
That was very, and a lot of people don't realize what that debris was made of. I saw an article that said that, scientifically speaking, that is like the worst thing to breathe in as far as air pollution because your lungs can't regenerate after pulling in like broken up cement. It gets embedded in your areoles and there's no way to expel it, right? So that was one of the reasons why I decided to move is that I was like, well, this was going to be my retirement. This is where I was going to live the rest of my life in the warm weather and being able to walk the beaches and swim almost every day. But if I can't breathe, what's the point?
Not only that, the pollution, I mean, what a lot of folks don't understand is when you're burning that amount in such a short amount of time, because the amount that has to be burned to get a payload that heavy off the ground, the pollution is huge. It's huge. And to have it in a populated area, it is amazing. But, Texas doesn't care about its people. I mean, if you take a look at I want everybody to listen to this. First of all, listen to Kat's testimony, because that just proves a point. Even with the way we deal with fracking in Texas, there are West Texas ranches where all that pressurized frack water is bubbling up and killing their cows and making their farmland useless. We're a huge state, and they just think, we allow these guys to go around and pollute all over. If you fly over West Texas, you can see fields of fracks. And think about, let's just say 1% of those closed wells failing, what it does to not just the topography, but what it does to the regeneration of that land. So, Kat, I get what you're saying, and I am glad that you brought that testimony to the audience, because, you can only be fooled for so long. Anything else you want to say before we go to Patrick?
Sure. The other thing is that the reason why he is there, and the reason why we also have the LNG ports, people keep talking about that pipeline that was only for export, that was liquid natural gas, and that used to have, I know I'm saying the wrong word, but in your mind it'll be the picture. There used to be these like sand dunes that were to, let's say, the southeast of this certain highway that connects Port Isabel to Brownsville. And it was actually grown by dumping sand, and, the municipalities in the area were trying to ameliorate the people were having all kinds of problems breathing down there because of the sand, because the wind would just come and blow the sand, and it was just in the air and people were breathing it, and it was really, really bad. So it caused asthma and things like that. Well, since LNG came in, LNG didn't even ask permission. They just flattened that whole area back out after they spent like probably millions of dollars dumping sand there to build it up back in the, I think in the 70s or 80s, right? And everything was just so wonderful down there. The air was just so nice. But anyway, all of that has been flattened out. And then everybody was walking around with like a smoker's cough, and me included. And I'm not a smoker, And so like my throat was constantly swollen, and I had this like smoker's cough. And then so between the LNG obliterating the land and what SpaceX was doing, I was just, you know what, I'm done
Kat,
with this place.
I hear you. I used to vacation out there in both North and South Padre Island, and I remember how beautiful it was in the 80s. And we've sold out our state.
Yep. Oh, so the most recent news article on something completely different is apparently Homeland Security busted a bakery down there. They took the husband and wife owners and threw them into some sort of custody, and when they got hauled away, the local community was up in arms because these were not like drug dealers or criminals or gun runners or anything like that. These were people that were hardworking, owned a bakery in the area, and employed several people, and they were just like hauled off in cuffs and taken into custody. And,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's an article on myrgv.com about that incident and how the community is trying to come together from miles around to try to support these people. And to us, I mean, while we understand that there are rules to follow, there's laws to follow and all this other stuff, like some of it is just really heavy-handed. And down there, we depend on people who have the right to be in the country, and also people who may have entered illegally because we don't have a viable system for people to just come across the border for a period of time to do work and go back, unless you're an American citizen. Then it's easy. There are American citizens who choose to live in Matamoros and come over to Brownsville because it's so much cheaper down there. Your healthcare is cheaper. Your medicine is cheaper. Your food is cheaper. Everything is so much cheaper. And so there are a lot of people who cross the border, and they are American citizens. They can cross. That is not a big deal. But for the other daily workers, it's gotten extremely difficult and dangerous for them to cross over and do landscaping.
Kat, I got to go to Patrick, but you're so right. And thank you so kindly for being a listener. Thank you so kindly for calling in, sister. Okay?
Okay, you have a great day.
You too, Kat. All right. Thank you, Kat. Let's go to Patrick. Come on in, Patrick.
I think that was the first time call from Kat, and it was awesome. Hope to hear from her more, and hope she understands that there's a 3 o'clock meeting too.
That's right, Kat. You can catch a show at 3 o'clock as well. Thank you for that commentary. I love it. Go ahead, Patrick.
She's covered a lot of what I was going to say, but what I want to ask and have everybody else ask themselves, I've tried researching it and I can't find any answers. Do we know a manifest of what's on these rockets.
That's a good point.
That ends up in the atmosphere.
Right. That's a very good point.
Or something on that, then we're breathing all that in, and then that's also raining down on crops. And eventually, he is going to have to test different fuel cells if he does plan on doing anything long distance.
Patrick, that is actually a good point, because when you're throwing that much stuff in the air, those particulates come down and settle in the ground. That is a very good point. And that, folks, that's what regulations is all about. That's why they don't want regulations. They don't want accountability. But that's the reason we have regulations. All those people that are living around there, they deserve to know what he's doing to their properties, what he's doing to the air that they breathe. Absolutely. Anything else, Patrick?
Just the CO2 and everything involved. If he's going to be doing this twice a week, that's a huge pressure greenhouse gas. And yes, the exhaust from the rockets is an incomplete combustion, which means there's small particulate matter, and some of that is cancerous. I can leave it with that.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. One of the fuels that they normally burn in these rockets is the combination of kerosene, and then they have liquid oxygen that they put in to burn real fast, real hot, real expensive. Anyway, thank you so kindly, my brother.
Nitromethane.
There you go. Thank you, sir. All right, folks. Like I was talking before, I wanted to talk about what's happening with the Washington Post columnist that resigned. Columnist and editor Ruth Marcus, and anybody who hears that word, Ruth Marcus, that is one of the premier writers at the Washington Post. She said Monday that she's resigning from the Washington Post after CEO and publisher Will Lewis allegedly decided not to run a column she penned critiquing billionaire owner Jeff Bezos' recent changes to the opinion column. She said in the note, which is addressed to both Bezos and Lewis, Marcus wrote that as an opinion writer, she was honored to offer commentary that readers could be assured constituted her best independent judgment of the topic at hand. Unfortunately, her opinions were not wanted any longer if it didn't conform to Bezos's edict, to Bezos's command. In late February, Bezos, who has owned the paper since 2013, announced a major change in the outlet's opinion section. From now on, the opinion section will advocate for personal liberties and free markets, and viewpoints opposing those pillars will be left to be published by others. That's what he said. What the hell does personal liberties and free markets mean? That just simply means you can't say anything against Trump. You can't say anything against unfettered capitalism. You can't say anything that tries to create any kind of social program that supports us all. That's a translation for those two words, or those two phrases. The section's editor, David Shipley, decided to depart the paper, and they lost thousands of subscriptions after Bezos made that statement. The move was denounced, including by the Post's own chief economics reporter, Jeff Stein, who called it a massive encroachment on the Post's opinion section, and said that the move makes clear dissenting views will not be published or tolerated there. We've spoken about the Powell memo for decades. Lewis Powell was who became the Supreme Court justice after Nixon appointed him. Was once, I think it was a lawyer for the Chamber of Commerce, and he wrote a note pointing out that I'm paraphrasing, but it pretty much said that as Americans became more intelligent, as Americans became smarter and started asking questions, why is it that we do the work and those with capital get all the spoils? Why is it that we have no real access to success unless invited into the fold, invited into the group, into the millionaires group, into the billionaires group? A lot of people think we're a meritocracy. Folks, we have never, ever been a meritocracy. Everybody that has gotten into the club, if you will, was invited. And it is hard for folks to realize that is our reality, but that is our reality. Every rich person got invited. And if you doubt it, people say, well, look at how this person created that company and they made it big from the start. And it all started that if you don't have capital, you have somebody who makes a conscious decision based on subjective values, whether you are going to get that business loan, whether you're going to get whatever. And if for some reason they don't like you, whether you are competent or not, it's no. Meritocracy sounds good, but we have never been a meritocracy. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Today we've only got 2 calls so far. Normally we get a bunch. Anyway, 713-526-5738. So what the Powell memo said is, in order for us to ensure that we maintain this form of what I call antiseptic slavery, in other words, not a meritocracy, we decide who succeeds, we have to infiltrate the colleges, we have to infiltrate the media, we have to infiltrate the churches, and we have to go out there and create the narratives according to what we believe, whether true or false, for which they created the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute. And every time you see a study that comes out of the Heritage Foundation or the Cato Institute or any one of these conservative think tanks, understand what their genesis were. Understand that these institutions were created to fight against people becoming more progressive, people becoming more intelligent, people becoming more enlightened. Because an enlightened population means questions are asked. An enlightened population means we begin to ask important questions about our economy. And you know what's the last thing capitalists want? The last thing that they want is for you to ask why. Because anytime you ask why, you will finally realize that this is not what you thought it was. I mean, look around Houston, look around the bus stations, look around everywhere. There are a lot of people out there going to work every day. And all those people that you're seeing, you're looking at a whole lot of people that were denied their successes, not because of their abilities, but simply because they were not invited into the club. And in that light, I did a piece that I called, let me look it up here. It's not wealth envy. Money not paid to you and inflated prices you pay make the wealthy rich. What I'll do is I'm going to play that piece that I recorded at my 3:00 show a few days ago, and then we'll continue the program thereafter. Lee the Bearcat says, MC Fee, all rich people make whatever. I can't control that, but I can control what I spend. Okay, Lee, and that is what not Lee the Bearcat. I want us to stop thinking that way. When you say you can't control what the rich person makes, right? Understand that if the rich person makes an excess, that is out of your own potential, right? That is an opportunity cost to you. And that is not how it's advertised in capitalism, right? The way our capitalist structure works, they take away your opportunity with what they make because they take a bigger share of the economy. But many people fail to see that a rich person getting, they want you to believe that is, don't have wealth envy. Go make your own. Even if that person make 1,000,000 times more than you do, don't worry about that. You just go out there and make your own, not realizing that that person taking that out of the economy does affect your own earning capabilities. And it's not taught in business schools. It's not taught in high school. It's not taught in college. But when the wealthy take an excess out of the economy, it affects you. So it's not wealth envy. It's protecting your own income to ensure the wealthy cannot take out more of the economy than they are worth. And that's what we have. That is why we have income inequality and wealth disparity, because they take that which they didn't earn. And until we understand that, we will continue to fall behind. So folks, the earnings of wealthy people does affect your earnings. Okay? When that tax cut that they want to give the wealthy people, that affects your earning. That affects your well-being. We have to stop seeding our intellect and intelligence to the crap that comes out of the plutocracy, the oligarchy. We got to get beyond that, folks. We've got to get beyond that. And I want to welcome Paul Fleming from Atlanta, Georgia, Joe from Los Angeles, California, and Catherine Donnelly, who just called in and enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed it with you. She's in the chat now as well, from Arkansas. We also have Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita, and in the house as well is Gene Deigel. How you doing, Gene? He says fracking causes earthquakes, which is absolutely true. We have Shannon Blanchard. Welcome to Politics Done Right. They're trying to kill us all with all those launches. Pat R as well is in the house. Thank you for being here. If I missed you in the scroll down, I brought up the scroll a bit late, so forgive me for doing that. A lot of folks with a healthy conversation in the chat. Let's go to Eddie, line 2. Come on in, Eddie.
Hey, good morning. I'm just having a hard time understanding why it's not okay for Jeff Bezos, who owns a paper, to say what that paper should be printing and what it shouldn't be.
Because he's called the free press, right? I mean, and that's, that is an interesting statement from you, brother Eddie. And let me tell you why. The press is the fourth estate. And the idea being that if we relegate the billionaires, I think you heard my commentary about the Powell Manifesto and how they intend to control. If we, first of all, you make a good point in that he owns it. He can put whatever restrictions he wants to, and that's what he has. He has the right to do so. We have the right to complain about that is not how a free press is supposed to work, and that's what we're doing, and that's why we don't buy it anymore. The problem is, however, Eddie, that if you need a free press to check on the government. We have to free press to check on corporations. That can only be done if you have a free press. Now, what I tell people is Jeff Bezos billionaires who do that, forget about them and concentrate on us. We the people, we the independent media. But you're right. You're right that go ahead, sir.
Isn't the rest of the paper, the free press, reporting on the news? The opinion section is not free press. It's more of free speech.
But here's the other thing, Eddie. What do you think if the billionaire tells his opinion section that you can't write anything of this sort? What do you think the other section of the paper is going to do when they have a story about Donald Trump grifting the American people? You think they're going to come out strongly and write about that?
Well,
honestly, but again, Eddie, I'm asking you to think within yourself and be honest. Do you think if you know the direction that your billionaire employer wants you to stop doing? Do you think don't you think that's going to affect the coverage in that paper in its totality?
Well, it might be, and that's where I would go to a competing paper and see if my writing is worth any value.
Right. And here's the deal, brother. That's what happens when you have billionaire owning things. That's why you want to support independent media like what we do here. Because first of all, you came with an alternative statement. We agree with you, but you also gave us the reason to say, Eddie, are you supporting KPFT to make sure that you get independent news, brother? That's my point. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I listen to you because, I mean, I've called you a few times. You know, I'm staunchly on the other side.
That's fine.
Hearing your...
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to have that dialogue with you. Right?
Okay. We kind of agreed. And she's just a little bit whining about not being able to write for the paper.
I don't think she's whining though, but we talk. I got to get to Brandon. He's going to slap me across the head if I don't give him at least a minute. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Have a good day. All right, Brian, come on in. You got a minute, sir. Oh, Brian left. Bruce, real quick, Bruce.
Good morning, Egberto. And you're so right about the press. It's an extension of us. I remember Donald Trump said he loved the uneducated. That's because he can get over on them. Musk made the statement I saw on TV this morning that he was saving the country from bankruptcy, that he was doing all these things for our better good. Well, I saw my neighbor walking his dogs in my front yard to use the bathroom. And I'm not going to buy the argument that he's fertilizing my yard and doing it for my own good. There's no difference. There's no difference between my neighbor letting his dogs poop in my yard and the billionaires raping us.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. You're a good man. I got to go. Studio.
Oh, nothing here. Take it home, Egberto.
All right, folks. Look, thank you very much. The rest of the program is at politicsandright.com/newsletter, politicsandright.com/newsletter. Anyway, folks, thank you all for calling in. Thank you all for writing in. You can give me a direct email at kpft@politicsandright.com, kpft@politicsandright.com. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics and Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Support for this show, Politics and Right, comes from politicsandright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people.